Every generation thinks they're different, that their empire, their money, their system will last forever. But history disagrees. From Rome's marble streets to Wall Street's neon screens, every age has believed it was permanent, until it wasn't. Ray Dalio spent 50 years studying 500 years of history, and what he found will change how you see the world today, because the same patterns that ended every great empire are happening again. Right now, the echo of empire's history moves like the tide, sometimes quiet, sometimes violent, but never still. Every few generations, the wave of power rises in one place, crests, then crashes upon another shore. 2,000 years ago, Rome was the heartbeat of civilization. Its legions marched under crimson banners, its law stretched from desert to sea, and its citizens believed the empire eternal. Yet centuries later, its marble halls stood empty, its currency worthless, its armies divided. From those ruins, the Dutch Republic emerged, small but brilliant. The Dutch invented the modern stock market, built ships that ruled the seas and turned trade into science. Their wealth seemed endless, until it wasn't. Debt ballooned, rivals multiplied, and the crown of commerce slipped westward. Britain picked it up. Steam engines thundered, factories roared, and London became the capital of the industrial age, the empire on which the sun never set. But empires burn brightest before they dim. 2 world wars, decades of debt, and the strain of maintaining global reach finally bent Britain's spine. And across the Atlantic, the United States rose, driven by innovation, discipline, and optimism. The dollar became the world's safe haven, American culture its common language. For nearly a century, the U.S. stood at the center of global order, but as history whispers through every fallen capital, the same question always returns. How long can dominance last? The big cycle. Ray Dalio calls this repeating rhythm the big cycle. Every great power travels the same arc. Rise, prosperity, excess, decline, renewal, or collapse. At first comes strength, productivity, savings, education, and unity. Then confidence, easy credit, investment, and rapid growth. Next, complacency, luxury, inequality, political division. Finally, correction, debt crises, conflict, and transformation. The cycle doesn't end with a single event. It unfolds slowly, like the turning of seasons. Morning brings invention. Afternoon brings abundance. Evening brings indulgence. Night brings reckoning, followed by a new dawn. Dalio's research, spanning 5 centuries, shows the pattern repeating across empires large and small. The specific details change. Ships become factories. Factories become microchips. But the underlying rhythm stays the same. Why empires rise? Every ascent begins with ideas. A nation invests in education, builds infrastructure, and rewards hard work. People trust their institutions. Leaders value merit over privilege. Productivity grows faster than debt, and innovation opens new markets. That mix of discipline and creativity births prosperity. With prosperity comes power, stronger armies, global trade, a respected currency. Confidence attracts capital, and the rest of the world begins saving in your money. You've become a reserve currency empire, the world's banker. For the Dutch, it was the guilder. For Britain, the pound. For the United States, the dollar. Each symbolized stability, until it didn't. Why? Empires fall. Success changes behavior. What was once discipline turns to indulgence. Borrowing replaces building. Wealth concentrates in fewer hands, and politics shifts from cooperation to blame. Debt climbs faster than productivity. Central banks cut rates to keep growth alive, but cheap money breeds speculation. The economy drifts from creation to consumption, from real work to paper profits. Then comes the shock. A war, a crisis, a sudden loss of faith. Governments print money to fill the gap. Inflation bites. Trust erodes. The pillars that held the empire, strong currency, unity, innovation, begin to crack. Decline rarely feels like decline at first. It feels like nostalgia, parades, pride, promises that the good times will return. But history's clock keeps ticking, indifferent to sentiment. The clock of civilizations, Imagine history as a 24-hour clock. Time stage description: morning, 6 a.m., noon. Rise, hard work, savings, innovation. Social unity, afternoon, noon 6 p.m. Peak confidence, expansion, global influence, evening 6 p.m., midnight. Decline, debt, inequality. Political division, night, midnight 6 a.m., crisis and reset, conflict. Reform or collapse leading to renewal. Rome, reached midnight when corruption replaced citizenship. The Dutch faced midnight when debt outweighed trade. Britain met it through global. Or reached dawn afterward was born somewhere new. Today, the hands of that clock move again, signals of a turning point. Look around, global debt at record highs. Central banks creating money faster than economies create value. Wealth gaps widening, political systems polarizing, a new rival, China, rising in economic and military strength. To Dalio, these are not random events. They're the same indicators that appeared before every major power shift of the past 500 years. The pattern suggests we're late in the current cycle, approaching the limits of debt and the test of leadership. Whether this ends in renewal or disorder depends on how we respond. The human heartbeat behind the data behind every graph is a human story. Ambition turning to arrogance, cooperation to conflict, unity to fragmentation. In Rome, senators stopped listening to citizens. In the Dutch Republic, luxury outpaced discipline. In Britain, empire became entitlement. And in modern America, innovation still thrives, but so does division. Dalio's warning is simple. The greatest tragedy is not seeing the pattern while living inside it. Most societies believe their moment is unique. None think the cycle applies to them. Yet history humbles them all. The machine of economics, Dalio often says the economy is a machine, complex, but logical. Its moving parts are productivity, credit, and debt. When people borrow, they bring future spending into the present. When they repay, future spending contracts. Add millions of such decisions together, and you get the heartbeat of capitalism, the short-term business cycle, booms and busts roughly every decade. But over time, these short cycles build into a long-term debt cycle, spanning 75 to 100 years, the lifespan of an empire's economic system. Each generation inherits the choices of the last. If debt grows faster than productivity for too long, the machine strains. Printing money can delay the pain, but it can't erase it. Eventually, faith in currency, the very fuel of the system, runs thin. That's when empires face their hardest question: can we reform peacefully, or will we reset violently? The crossroads right now, the world stands at one of those crossroads. Three forces are converging, just as they did before every great shift. Debt and monetary excess, decades of cheap credit and money creation. Internal conflict, widening inequality and political polarization. External rivalry, a rising power challenging an aging one. In earlier centuries, these pressures ended Dutch and British dominance. Today, they define the tension between the United States and China. It's the same melody, played on modern instruments. The rising contender 40 years ago, China was isolated and impoverished. Today it's the world's factory, a leader in infrastructure and digital finance. Its rise mirrors the early phases of past empires. Disciplined savings, investment in education, focus on production over consumption. Dalio calls this the new cycle of the East. For the first time in generations, two superpowers of equal scale share the same stage. History suggests such moments are rarely stable. Yet conflict is not inevitable. It's a test of wisdom. Empires fall through arrogance. They endure through adaptation. The choice ahead. Story of global order isn't written by governments alone. It's shaped by billions of decisions. Empires collapse not from invasion, but from erosion. Corruption, complacency, blindness to the pattern. Dalio's central message is one of awareness. If we understand the cycle, we can act before the breaking point, both as nations and as individuals. We can save when others spend, build when others boast, reform when others deny. Because the secret of survival isn't power, it's perspective. Transition to part 2. So where are we on the curve? How far into the big cycle have we traveled? To see that clearly, we must open the engine itself, to watch how money, credit, and confidence rise and fall together, and to understand why, in every era, societies repeat the same mistakes while believing this time is different. The invisible engine beneath every empire, beneath every city skyline and trading floor, there is a single invisible engine: money, not coins, not paper, but trust. It is the promise that tomorrow will honor what we exchange today. When that promise holds, the machine hums. When it breaks, the machine stalls. Dalio describes this not as mystery but as mechanism, a system that obeys rules. Understand the rules, and you understand the rhythm of prosperity and pain. The mechanics of credit. Every transaction in an economy sits on three pillars: income, spending, and credit. When you earn, you can spend what you have or borrow against what you hope to earn later. That borrowing brings tomorrow's money into today's world. It speeds growth. It creates jobs. It builds cities. But every borrowed dollar is a future bill. As debt accumulates, the promise of repayment begins to strain the system. The gears of the machine grind harder, faster, hotter. Governments, businesses, families, each acts the same way. They borrow when confident, tighten when fearful. Their collective emotion becomes the pulse of the entire world economy. Short cycles, the heartbeat of capita.